Nigel Farage has never been one to shy away from controversy, and this interview was no exception. The atmosphere was charged from the outset, with the presenter clearly aiming to corner him on his ties to Donald Trump and his outspoken views on foreign policy. Yet, Farage, ever the skilled debater, turned what could have been a grilling into a showcase of his ability to dominate a conversation and reshape the narrative. His sharp wit and unapologetic stance made it clear that he wasn't there to play defense, he was there to go on the attack. The presenter wasted no time in trying to bait Farage, beginning with a snide remark about his frequent visits to America. But Farage, unfazed, brushed it off with his trademark confidence, setting the tone for what would become an intense verbal sparring session. The host's attempt to frame Farage as overly cozy with the Trump administration fell flat as Farage deftly redirected the conversation to the broader importance of the UK-US alliance. He made no apologies for his connections to Trump, instead using them as a badge of honor, emphasizing the critical need for strong transatlantic ties in an increasingly volatile geopolitical landscape. The question of whether Farage was angling for the role of UK ambassador to the United States was met with a characteristic mix of humor and defiance. No, I am not going to be the ambassador even though Trump would love it, he said with a smirk, cutting through the presenter's thinly veiled insinuations. He went on to stress that his primary allegiance was to Britain, not to any foreign power, and that his concern was ensuring the UK's interests were safeguarded in a world where alliances were more critical than ever. His refusal to entertain the presenter's attempts to paint him as self-serving only served to strengthen his position, leaving his opponent visibly frustrated. As the discussion turned to foreign policy, Farage seized the opportunity to criticize what he called the failures of the current leadership. He lambasted the UK government's handling of critical defense and trade negotiations, warning of the dangers of alienating key allies like the US. His argument was simple but effective. Britain's security and prosperity depend on its ability to maintain strong partnerships, and leaders like Keir Starmer, in his view, were jeopardizing that by prioritizing ideology over pragmatism. Farage's rhetoric was forceful, his words calculated to resonate with viewers who were disillusioned with the status quo. When the topic of Iran came up, Farage didn't hold back. He criticized the government's reluctance to designate Iran's Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization, calling it a failure of both moral clarity and strategic foresight. He tied this back to his broader critique of weak leadership, arguing that Britain's unwillingness to take a firm stance on global threats was a symptom of a deeper malaise within the political establishment. By pivoting the conversation away from the presenter's initial line of questioning, Farage not only avoided being boxed in but also managed to set the agenda, forcing the host to play catch-up. Social media erupted as the interview unfolded, with Farage supporters hailing him as a master tactician and his critics begrudgingly acknowledging his ability to command the room. Platforms like X were awash with commentary, much of it praising Farage's composure and clarity under pressure. Farage just obliterated that presenter, one user wrote. Like him or not, he knows how to handle himself in a fight. Another commented, this is why people listen to Farage, he doesn't back down, and he always has a clear answer. The presenter, clearly struggling to regain control, attempted to pivot the conversation back to Farage's personal ambitions, insinuating that his frequent mentions of Trump were more about self-promotion than genuine concern for national interests. But Farage wasn't having it. My role is to represent the people who voted for me here, he shot back. My role is to protect British interests. Yes, I've spent a lot of time in America, but my first responsibility, and the commitment of my heart, is, of course, to our country. His words struck a chord, cutting through the noise and resonating with viewers who felt that their voices had been ignored by the political elite. Farage's ability to turn the tables on the presenter was nothing short of remarkable. Each time the host tried to corner him, Farage came back stronger, using the opportunity to highlight his own vision for Britain's future. He painted himself as a leader who was unafraid to tackle the tough questions and confront uncomfortable truths, in stark contrast to what he described as the evasive and ineffectual approach of his political rivals. By the end of the interview, it was clear that Farage had not only held his ground but had also managed to shift the narrative in his favor. The closing moments of the interview were a masterclass in political theater. Farage, ever the provocateur, left the audience with a parting shot aimed squarely at the Labour government. If I can be useful, given not just that Trump's a friend but that half the incoming cabinet are people I've known for years, I'll do whatever it takes to act in the national interest, he said. It was a statement that encapsulated his entire performance, bold, unapologetic, and calculated to leave an impression. As the dust settled, one thing was clear. Farage had once again proven why he remains one of the most polarizing yet compelling figures in British politics. Whether you love him or hate him, It's impossible to deny his ability to seize the moment and turn even the most hostile of interviews into a platform for his message. This wasn't just an interview, it was a battle, and Farage walked away the undisputed victor.